This is the hat that's had 60 years of weather. Most of the paint is either faded or gone, and there's plenty of rust to get rid of. I'm going to try electrolysis. It sounds quite scary, but having looked into it a little bit, it doesn't seem too bad. And hopefully I'll be able to remove all the rust and most of the paint quite easily. Let's see how we get on. So this is a diagram of the setup that I've got for electrolysis. Over here we have a sacrificial anode, and here we have the tractor part. Here we have a power supply. Here we have a plastic box. And this funny squiggly line is in fact a plastic egg tray. And that's just there to try to keep the parts, whatever the part happens to be, from touching the anode, which would short circuit everything. And in here we have some water into which I've dissolved some sodium bicarbonate. And what happens when you dissolve the sodium bicarbonate is that it dissociates into sodium ions, which are positive, and carbonate ions, which are negative, and that makes the water conduct electricity and completes the circuit. And electrons, under the power of the battery, flow from the sacrificial anode into the tractor part. And basically there's three sorts of reactions that we've got going. This is reaction number one. Reaction number two is the production of hydrogen where the metal and the electrons meet the water. And it's important because the hydrogen here gets under the surface of the rust and actually under the surface of the paint also, and helps to physically detach the paint and the rust from the tractor part. The third reaction is the reduction of rust back into iron. The iron doesn't become part of the steel, and so I'm not really rebuilding the hat, but the converted rust, which I will see as a black deposit on the surface of the steel, should be easily removed. What happens then is that some of this rust gets converted back to iron. Some of it will just flake off and fall to the bottom. So once it's flaked off, it's no longer receiving electrons. So it doesn't change any further. And some of it will be left as, that's the surface rust, as a thin layer of what will look black on the surface of the metal object, the tractor part. And hopefully, after about 24 hours, all of the rust and most of the paint will be easily detached from the metal part, leaving us with what effectively is chemically clean steel, which we can then rinse and clean up as necessary before painting. I've been very impressed by the electrolysis and the amount of time that it's probably saved me in cleaning up the hat, and I'll certainly be using it to clean up other small parts of the tractor. The next thing I want to do is to paint the hat and the other parts of the air cleaner and restore them to the tractor so that I can actually start it. As you'll know if you looked at the earlier videos, it hasn't been started for about 10 years, and I want to make sure that when I do start it, I'm not going to cause additional problems by dragging in dirty fuel or air. If you've got any useful tips for me, I'd be very grateful if you put them in the comments below. If you made it this far, thanks very much for watching.